The chief sticks his hand in the biomass and pulls out Keys' neural implants so Cortana can access the command codes. He steals a Banshee and flies to the Pillar of Autumn to detonate its fusion engines and destroy Halo. Cortana contacts Wellesley and fills him in. Silva makes the plan to capture the Truth and Reconciliation, repair it, and use it to return the UNSC forces to Earth. Gee, I wonder what happens. Using a mix of Pelicans and Banshees, Silva's forces engage the Covenant at the Truth and Reconciliation. The Covenant is beaten back, and the UNSC occupies the Covenant ship, burning all the Flood that they see, locking up Covenant prisoners, and sealing up rooms that they haven't yet gained control over. They figure that once they're in space and away from Halo, they can take care of all the remaining Flood and stray Covenant soldiers. Wellesley is unconvinced, knowing that the Covenant were trying to keep the ship grounded because they wanted to do a thorough job in eradicating the Flood before they left the surface. Having captured the Prophet of Stewardship, Silva considers himself a hero and is so drunk in the glory that he is unable to critically examine his actions, ignoring Wellesley's protests. When Jenkins is brought on board, he can sense living Flood on the ship, but he is unable to warn anyone. One of McKay's superiors, a woman named Gail Purdy, tells her to put a guard on a pipeline that contains important wiring. It's a very short interaction, but it would technically pass the Bechdel test. Two named women talk about something other than a man. I like that it reinforces the idea that there are capable women in the UNSC. Once again, minor characters are just as important for representation as main characters. Silva tries to fly the ship, and the vibration triggers a Flood attack. Combat forms attack the engine rooms from the air shafts. The Marines kill them quickly and seal the air vents, but McKay is concerned. She reports to Silva and tries to convince him to land and purge the Flood before taking off, but Silva actually wants the Flood on the ship, contained, in order to bring samples back to Oni. Wellesley tries to persuade him to change his mind, but he's too stubborn to listen to either of them. McKay considers her loyalties. She is sworn to defend Earth and her colonies, and Silva threatens to jeopardize all of humanity by taking the Flood to Earth. She observes Jenkins try to destroy the pipeline, have Marines stop him, and then look at her imploringly. She makes a decision. She tells the Marine guarding the pipeline to take a break, waits a moment, and then triggers a grenade. Jenkins mouths, "Thank you." The severed pipeline causes Silva to lose control and the ship to drop. Wellesley makes one final comment that Silva taught McKay well, and then the ship strikes the surface and explodes. Given that all of these side characters are doomed by the very premise, I can think of no better way to kill off McKay than have her go down as a hero.
Folks need heroes, Chief, to give them hope.
Meanwhile, Yayap and Zuka Zamamee join the Covenant forces occupying the Pillar of Autumn. Yayap no longer has control over the elite, but Zamamee fears being executed for his failure to kill the chief at Alpha Base, so he goes along with Yayap's plan. Yayap needs Covenant stores of methane gas to breathe, and staying at the Pillar of Autumn gives Zamamee a chance to wait for the chief to show up. Zamamee impersonates a fallen comrade, and puts Yayap in charge of a file of jackals. Due to the Covenant interspecies prejudice, the jackals hate Yayap, until Yayap proves himself as a worthy leader by saving them from some Flood trying to sneak in through a supplies delivery. They then love Yayap, but they still hate grunts. They blame grunts for the Flood getting as far as they did, and they justify their love of Yayap by insisting that Yayap, despite every appearance to the contrary, is actually a jackal. Wait, first Dowski is a grunt in disguise, and now Yayap is a jackal in disguise? Maybe Keys is an elite in disguise, thus explaining his cruelty towards Dowski, the grunt, and his admiration for the chief as a fellow warrior. Has Silva ever tried pulling off his face? I bet it comes right off. Yayap is conflicted because he likes jackals praising him, but would prefer to be praised as a grunt, and not as an honorary jackal. There are parallels to racism in our world, where racists can be impressed by individual people of color and label them as honorary white people, missing the lesson that other races have value. This is such a racism cliché that I'm sure Dietz saw the parallel. Science fiction has a long history of using fictional intelligent species as stand-ins for separate races for discussions of race and racism. A parallel can also be made to sexism, where sexists dub isolated good women as like men instead of appreciating them as women.
Now you can face your friends because you didn't lose to a girl.
Girl? You're not a girl. I mean, you are a girl, but you're like Xena. You're a great wrestler.
It seems like Dietz should have an understanding of that, and not have the related issue of viewing McKay's femininity and her being a soldier as two things in conflict.
Clearly.
The Master Chief eventually makes it to the Pillar of Autumn. He kills both Flood and Covenant on his way to the bridge. When Cortana accesses the computer, she starts a countdown to detonate the engines, but is thwarted by Spark, who taps into the computer from the engine room and out-hacks her. She and the Chief come up with a plan to damage the engines physically, to destabilize the fusion core and make it blow up anyway. Zamamee learns that his target is on board and volunteers to be the elite to take him out. He puts Yayap in a radio room to monitor communications related to the Chief, so he can contact Zamamee with the information regarding the Chief's movements. Yayap is pleased as punch to be taken out of the line of fire and eagerly obeys. He determines that the Chief will have to leave the engine room along a certain corridor, and relays this information to Zamamee. Despite everything, Yayap realizes that he feels some affection for Zamamee and tells him to be careful. Given how badly Zamamee treated him, I don't understand this at all. Stockholm Syndrome? Maybe Yayap is as addicted to abuse as the Uka in Gravitation. On that note, I have never seen any Yayap Zamamee slashfic. Get on it, fangirls.
Hate to disappoint.
Yayap realizes intuitively that they're all gonna die. Wait, he can't do that. He's not a woman. How does he have access to their magical powers? He quietly excuses himself, grabs a day's worth of food and methane, and takes a ghost out. He knows that he won't live very long, and just wants some time alone. Secure in this knowledge, he becomes happy for the first time in days. Master Chief destabilizes the fusion core and starts running for pickup from Foehammer. He encounters Zamamee with a shade gun turret on an elevator. Cortana drops the elevator, and the Chief just rolls grenades in. Zamamee blames Yayap one last time before dying. What a jerk. A lot of people who read this wish you got to fight Zamamee as a player. There's technically a special ops elite on the elevator, but he doesn't have a shade, and it's debatable if Deeds thought of that elite as Zamamee. Getting to fight an elite on a turret would be a little boss battle in a game without any boss battles. And people naturally want to hurt this guy because he hurt Yayap, who arouses sympathy. Again, in contrast to Dowski, the game technically gives you the freedom to kill Keys, but it brands you as evil and ends the game. There is never any indication in gameplay or in the book that Keys is supposed to be unlikable, let alone morally ambiguous. The Chief gets a warthog and races to the extraction point. Echo 419 is hit by Banshee fire and crashes before Raleigh can save them. They mourn her for a moment and then race to a longsword. The atom explodes. Yayap observes the fire begin to spread. The explosion grows so large that it breaks apart Halo. Master Chief observes the destruction from the longsword. He thinks about the people they lost, Keys, Foehammer, and McKay, who he never got to know. Cortana reports that they're the only ones left and repeats the justification for doing what they did. She says that it's over. Master Chief tells her that it's not over. The Covenant is still out there, and Earth is still at risk. They're just getting started. And as concluded Halo Combat Evolved, so now concludes Halo the... Wait, there's more? Right. Well, this is where Halo the Flood ended in its original 2003 release. The 2010 edition continues with a series of short stories, in a style similar to the Conversations from the Universe booklet, included in the collector's edition of Halo 2. I don't know who wrote them. It probably wasn't Dietz. It was probably a member of 343 Industries, possibly Frank O'Connor, who does the foreword. The first is from Thel Vadamee, the elite to become the Arbiter, to his advisor Locke Vadamee, following his failure at Halo. He encloses his log detailing the beginning of the Siege of Reach, following the Pillar of Autumn to Halo, various events that took place in Halo the Flood given extra details based on later canon, like the ship's Seeker of Truth and High Charity, details of the beginning of the heretical sect in the gas mine, descriptions of the Infinite Sucker incident, depicted in the Halo graphic novel, and a bit of a bridge between Halo the Flood and Halo First Strike. The second is an Oni transcript of a Marine calling for help from a bumblebee, presumably an escapee from the destruction of Halo. The Flood are in there with him. He shoots himself to keep them from getting him. The Flood are still alive, presumably floating through space in a bumblebee somewhere. The third is from the perspective of a Flood infection form. It infests a Marine named Anna and listens to her thoughts. It mostly just follows a simplistic pattern of instincts to seek food and change its prey's form. But it also absorbs her mind and fragments of her identity. The two of them kind of merge and experience each other's priorities, before the Flood ultimately takes total control in its simplistic desires. Anna thinks about searching for Johnson, meaning that she is supposed to be in the unit of Marines that first encountered the Flood. In the game, we see that they're all male, and this is a nice retcon to enhance the female presence in the UNSC. She also thinks about her husband Paul, making her the female soldier counterpart to San Marcos, subverting the androcentric model of the military. Insofar as the narrative goes, she is a counterpart to that wacky, insane Marine that the player encounters on the way to the flood.
I'll blow your brains out! Get away from me! Ah! Ah! Don't touch me, you freaks! I won't be like you, I'll die first!
If only she could have actually been in the original 2003 story. The fourth is a journal entry from Zuka Zamamee. It's a speech addressed to the Forerunners, his gods, detailing his mission to kill the Master Chief. I would say that the tone is really out of character, framing him as way more pious than the plot depicts, and exclusively using terms not introduced until Halo 2 for subjects described otherwise in Halo the Flood. It's like the shift of Klingon makeup between Star Trek the original series and the movies, and like there would be a spin-off depicting a specific TOS Klingon character with the revised makeup. It just doesn't work. You need some elaborate storyline about a modified virus changing their biology for it to make any sense. The fifth is a log written by 343 Guilty Spark, detailing the events at Halo. It incorporates concepts discussed in Great Bear's Forerunner saga, which wouldn't come out until 2011, and it hints at plot threads. It defines the humans as reclaimers and AIs as ancillas, and it talks about symmetry, Spark having chosen his path, and Spark taking up the mantle. Generally, it's just a big teaser for Halo Krypton. The sixth and final story is a report written by the librarian on her efforts categorizing all the life on Earth. She describes 3 types of human: modern human, Neanderthal, and Florian. Again, it's pretty much just a teaser for Halo Krypton. I'll discuss my feelings on the librarian when I actually get to the Forerunner saga. Okay, now Halo the Flood is over. From a feminist perspective, it's a marked improvement over Halo the Fall of Reach and Halo Combat Evolved. Melissa McKay is fun as the badass soldier on the order of Sergeant Johnson in Halo 2, and there is a good attempt to thoroughly integrate women into the UNSC. The problem is that when it fails, it really fails. Dietz just doesn't quite understand feminism, leading to problematic stuff like asserting McKay manages to be both a soldier and a woman, saying that women have superpowers of empathy, and, oh yeah, Keyes torturing Dowski, and this being played off as Keyes acting rationally, and Dowski being a horrible person who deserves everything. No, really, this scene is just astonishingly cruel. What the hell, Dietz? Other problematic stuff that I don't blame Dietz for necessarily is the lack of female covenant, which I blame Bungie for, and the stereotypical character of Hikoa, which I blame Eric Nyland for creating, and Dietz for not doing anything more with her. How hard could it have been to give her a paragraph broadening her character even the slightest bit? This concludes my analysis. See you all next time.
I think we're just getting started.